Good evening. As you can see, oh yeah, my microphone's working. Okay, cool. I was gonna say, let me turn my music down here. Just as you can see, I got a haircut. Um, I don't look so unkept anymore. Good evening. It's Saturday. I had a kind of a busier weekend than most. My folks were visiting, which is always fun. My boys love my boys love seeing their grandparents. So we did that. Pretty much hung out with them all day. Not all day yesterday, but yesterday evening. Then we hung out with them all day today, and they turned around and went home tonight. So it was kind of a quick visit, quick trip. But so far, yeah, Saturday is going well. It's 10:30 here where I'm at, and so the house is quieted down. Our house is actually currently under siege. Uh, it seems like everybody is sick, and everybody has different symptoms. So that's fun. At the moment, at the moment, I'm the last man standing. Uh, so which either means one of two things. Either I'm already sick and I'm just like 4 or 5 days behind the rest of my family, or I'm extremely lucky. So I'm gonna keep washing my hands, eating lots of oranges, and praying that it doesn't come for me. That being said, since the house is kind of winding down for the evening and everything is quiet, I thought, why not jump on and stream a little? So that's what we're here to do. We're gonna drink some coffee, some very subpar coffee. It's Keurig coffee, which I'm a big believer in inclusive coffee culture. I'll drink, you know, just about any kind of coffee because, in my opinion, any coffee is better than no coffee. But Keurig coffee is just kind of flat. Yeah, it's just kind of flat. But it was quick and easy to make, which is what I wanted for this moment in time. It's got a little bit of caffeine in it. Gonna get us focused up. So what are we gonna work on tonight? Well, you guessed it. We're gonna work more on that alt text project that we've been working on, which I've basically exclusively been working on while streaming. I haven't worked on it at all. I don't even have it pushed up to a GitHub repo. It only lives on this machine. So, yeah, we haven't made a ton of progress, but we're getting to the point where basically now, like, pretty much have it done. Last time we worked on this, we worked on getting uh, getting integration tests squared away. That's what we worked on last time. We're trying to get integration tests squared away. Oh, let's get back into it, huh? What do you say? Sound like a plan? I think it sounds like a plan. Where were we? We were Altgen. Altgen. That's the name of the project. The music too loud? No, the music sounds okay to me. Let me know if the music's too loud. So yeah, so last time we were here, we basically got these alt text squared away by, not alt text, these integration tests squared away by using this mock handler. But I actually want to rename this. And I want to rename this to mock um, Gemini service. Because if we come in here, we're specifically registering this as the handler for this basically a strongly typed HTTP client, which means we could theoretically come in here and have additional message handlers for different HTTP clients. So I think it's good to accurately name what this handler does. I mean, I guess we could call it a mock Gemini service handler. There's probably more. Mock Gemini service handler, probably more accurate. Okay, so what do we want to do? What we want to do now is we actually want to write an end-to-end test. So this is where we got to. This is where we stopped. So what we're going to do in here is we're actually going to write a test, and it's really just going to be a single test. So the reason it's just going to be a single test is because this test is actually going to make a call to our Gemini service. It's actually going to use a legit API key. So we don't want to have a lot of those tests just because they're costly. So this test is going to need a class fixture of app factory. That basically going to look very similar to our integration test. We just need to pull this app factory up into a common namespace. So let's create a folder called not common but fixture, because we're actually going to have another fixture to add here too. So let's move this guy. So we're going to go up one directory and then into fixtures. Yep, save it. Now this guy should live over here. I'll have to update this. And we probably need to update our using. Maybe not. Huh. I'm surprised I don't need to declare. Yeah, I feel like get back to our end-to-end test. And I apologize if I don't talk as much. Maybe I'll get warmed up here in a minute. Okay. So let's see, app factory, which is good. That looks just like our integration test. I should have a primary constructor though. Yeah, I guess. The big thing this needs is we need the app factory. And then at the moment we just need a protected HTTP client like that. Okay, yep, just like that. And then we can add a new one over here called, again, we can just call it generate endpoint test. And I know some people probably don't like having similarly named files. I don't mind it, especially if they're namespace like this. So this will be namespace alt gen dot api dot test dot in. Oh boy. class. This will be a generate endpoint test. And we can use a primary constructor. That was wrong. Copilot, that was so wrong. Test at factory. This. And then the other thing, so yeah, I mean, essentially that's what we want to do. The other thing, right, is we want to say public async path generate endpoint when called it should return okay. Which really, again, this is more than anything, this is kind of a smoke test, right? You're not gonna write an end-to-end test for every path through your code because it's the most expensive thing you're gonna do. That's where you want to leverage unit tests and integration tests as much as possible because you have the ability to do a little bit of mocking to take care of those more complicated or hard to read paths in your code. The end-to-end test is much more, in my opinion, much more of a smoke test, much more of a most critical pass, right? We just want to make sure that this thing actually does what we hope it to do. So yeah, so that's why my test methods is pretty simplistic and not overly specific. Now, what do we need to do here? It's going to look a lot like our test method here, only we're not going to mock out any of this stuff. So let's just go ahead and copy this guy. So we also need to add a to do here. What should we do? We need to add a to do here because to do mock actual response from Gemini. Because we haven't really figured that out, what that response, we want that response to look like, because we haven't really worked on a prompt or anything for it. So, okay. So yeah, we can copy a lot of this. Yank, go back to end to end, put that there. We could say, well, excuse me, we can say, I just got started, I'm already yawning. So what's the content? The content is guy down here. Grab one of these. Okay. Excuse me. I lost my train of thought again. Yeah, we're here. We're gonna put our content there. And obviously though we need to fix. I don't know how to. Let's see. We're gonna have to load that byte content, and we're gonna want to get the test file name. What did our test file end up looking like? Oh, it's a library. And of course it's a binary file, so we can't show it in here. Which, oh, we also need to move this too, don't we? NV, go up one, look at files. Oh, go up again, make a file. Does that move everything? Yeah, okay, move everything. So now we need to also change this. And then we also need to change where we're reading that file in. Let's extract this to a helper, just a helper class. So let's make a let's make a utils folder. I know that's kind of I know utils is kind of lazy. It's like services or anything like that. But I mean, honestly, people poke fun at it. But like, where else are you gonna stick stuff? You know. So then we'll make a file. I don't know, file reader, file manager, test file manager, test file manager. Let's see it. Space is going to be alt gen dot API dot test dot utils. Yeah, public. Is that what we want to do? I think for now we just need to read the file, huh? Yeah, we just get the byte. Yank it, delete it. Put it here. Then we should adjust this a little bit. And read files. We need to pass this in. Oh, can actually just rename this file path, and let's rename this file. Delete this. This is going to be public. It's also going to be called space rn get file. Okay, and then we can go back to our integration test here. And we can get rid of this. Well, actually, that's fine. Test name. And instead of this, we will say test file manager get that, and that's because we don't have a using for it. So let's add one. Test pills. Test image name. So why did we do that? Well, we did that so that we can do this. Because again, if you go back to our end-to-end test, we need to send a legit file. So we're going to say var byte content equals test file manager, get file, and pass in library .jpg, that. I wonder, this probably shouldn't block, should it? Or at least we should have a non-blocking version. So, and S. Oh. Get file, pasting. File name. We're gonna have to reuse that. File name. Complaining about cannot convert. Oh, we're not awaiting. Cannot convert from byte to what's that about? Cannot convert to what are you talking about? Oh. That's what you're talking about. I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Okay, so maybe byte content isn't the right name here. Maybe I just file. Right. File. Okay, the real thing though we need to do here, right, is I'm gonna do this line by line because I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to indent in the reverse. And I should probably learn how to do that. I know how to do it. I know how to do more indentation on multiple lines, but I don't know how to do the opposite. Okay, so the big thing here that we were trying to get at is this, the provider key, right? If we send this actual value, Gemini is going to respond with an error because that's not a real key. So what we need to do is we need to get a real key to use for our test. So locally, we'll put this in like some sort of settings file. In CI/CD, this will likely be a secret that we inject. We'll inject it as an environment variable to overwrite the settings file. But we need to have a fixture basically to do this. Or that's the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to add a new fixture called I don't think I want it to be. Oh, excuse me. Well, yeah, I'm going to add a new fixture called configuration. Or how about test? How about end-to-end test configuration? It's a long name. How about I rename this to How about just end-to-end configuration? Maybe just test. Maybe just test configuration for now. Naming things is hard. That naming thing, I spend way too much time worrying about naming things, especially on small little projects like this. Yeah, we're gonna have a public class. This is going to be called test configuration. Yeah, I think honestly, I think we can just say we don't need to do that. We can just say public static by configuration, and then it has a getter. Method I configuration doesn't exist. No. We want that concrete implementation of it. I think this can be static, but maybe it's just complaining. Oh, I know why it's complaining. Because this is a property that needs a name. And this cannot be I. This needs to be a concrete type. And this is not going to be app settings. I'm going to call this test settings.json. And then I'm also, instead of just doing the JSON file, like I said, if we want this to work in CI/CD without having to write a JSON file, we need to also add environment variables. This. And actually what we could do is we could actually make this private. I don't need to specify that. I can just make it static. And then what we can do is we can actually say, not base URL, but we could say Gemini API key is what we're going to say. Public static string Gemini API key. And if that is null, then we can throw complaining about. Throw new invalid operation exception. And that line's a little long for me personally. I'm going to put that on a separate line. So this way the config, that static config option's hidden, and so our tests only need what they need from that config that we'll explicitly grab. So now what we should be able to do is we should be able to go back to our end-to-end test. And we should be able to say I class fixture is test configuration. That. And then we can inject that. And then we can expose that. And you might say, okay, well, couldn't you customize the at factory? Yeah, we could. We could do that. And actually, now that I'm thinking about this, there's one problem with what I have going on here. And that is that our app factory is overriding this Gemini class. So I think we need to rethink of how we're doing this because we don't want this to happen in our end-to-end. So we could just create another type. We could call it like we could call it because you can't. I don't think you can do it factory dot. Yeah, once we build it, I don't think we can do any. Server dot. I don't think we can do any further. Like, I don't think we can change with. Oh, can we do this per test? Creates a new web application with that's further customized by configuration. Well, that's kind of interesting. So we could technically override the service here. Or I guess we could actually do it in the integration test. Couldn't we? That probably makes more sense. I don't know. So I could have like app factory, I could have like integration app factory, end-to-end app factory. But I kind of like the idea of just doing the factory configuration that we need. So you're probably thinking, what is he saying? So what I'm thinking is, here's what I'm thinking. So yeah, what am I thinking? How do I want to do this? Like now I'm wondering, should I namespace fixtures under each of the type of end-to-end? This is the stuff I spend way too much time thinking about when I'm building small stuff like this. It just shouldn't even matter. I should just do something, whatever's quickest and easiest to get the thing accomplished. So what's probably easiest is to namespace this down and have separate classes. Maybe not namespace it, but just have separately named classes. So we have integration app factory, and then let's do this. Okay, let's come over to our integration test and let's do this. Let's come over to integration test and let's say I think this will work. Let's remove this. Let's remove this. Okay. Let's remove the primary constructor. Let's come down here. Oh, let's also declare another property. So let's go back to app factory. Let's take this property from here. Let's delete it. We're actually going to do this. We're going to do this for a bunch of things. Let's come over to our integration test. Let's add that as a property here. And we will make it a protected property. Don't I have that as a global? I should have that as global. Global things. I want. Ugh. I'm still, as you can see, I'm still a Vim noob who's fumbling his way. Glory. I'm fumbling my way to glory. It inspires confidence, doesn't it? Okay, so what am I doing here? What I'm doing here is I'm basically gonna configure the web host. I'm gonna configure my app factory for my integration test. So now what I'll do is I'm gonna move this up here. Let's set that there. Then I'm gonna come down here in my constructor, and in my constructor I'm gonna do this, but it's not gonna be that simple. It's actually gonna be factory, and it's gonna be with web host builder, and then yeah, we're gonna do this. What's it complaining about? Oh, this returns a web application factory. But app factory inherits from web application factory. So we can just cast it. We should be able to cast it. Really wants us to do that, so we'll do that. Really wants us to do that, so we'll do that. And I find this difficult to read, so I'm gonna new lines in here. See, that goes to that one. Goes to that one. These are all indented one too many. That. Okay, cool. So now the factory that my integration tests work will work with this factory that's being configured here. While still leaving me the ability to customize the app factory in a more general way. Yeah, so they have factory set, they have the mock number, they have the create client, which is all good. We can go back to my app factory. We can remove these. We don't need to do this here. We can remove this unneeded using. So right now we're not doing any special configuration at the whole entire app level. We're just doing it now at the integration test level, saying, hey, at this level, at the factory that we hand to these types of tests, we're gonna do some stuff to the services, which should mean that all my tests still pass. Let's test that theory, right? Let's see. Remove that guy. Got extra space in here. Write all that out. Space df. That should run my file. And if we didn't fuck anything up, everything should just work like it was before. And it doesn't. So what did I break? Let's see. Base TO. Base TO. Did the build fail, I wonder? Let's see. Yeah, the build failed. There is no argument that corresponds to the required parameter of config. At factory does not contain a definition for no explicable extension method. Missing using directive. What files are these in? This is in generate endpoint test. And these are all in generate endpoint test. Oh, that's weird that it's not linting for me those errors. Okay, so what? Oh, I know why. Because there's something hasn't been written out. Okay. Now let's try again. At factory does not contain a definition for mock Gemini service handler and no accessible extension method. Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, because it's not on the factory anymore. This is now just on the integration test. So, yeah. So, not on the factory anymore. And then, what was the other? The other error was over here. Where this needs a test configuration. And that needs to be faster. Oh, and I need to write that out, don't I? Write it all out. Source. There we go. Okay, now let's go back and try to run my test files. Leader TF. And hopefully these all pass this time. I have one viewer. Hello, one viewer. Are you having a nice evening? Okay, shit broke. Unable to cast object to type at factory. I don't like that. So what? If I do, I guess if I do web application factory of type program, this will probably be happy then. Kind of sucks. I would prefer to. I mean, I guess it isn't an app factory anymore, really, at that point, right? Because I've altered it further. But then I guess this isn't. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this isn't the. I've never done it this way before, I don't think, but. Alright, one passed, one failed. But found internal server error value 500. Well, why would that be? Oh, I know why that would be. I should still be clearing it here. This should still work. Yeah, well, if I run this by itself and it succeeds, then we know it's a concurrency issue. Okay, so maybe it's not a concurrency issue. Let's actually go to program.cs. So someone's throwing. Most likely it's going to be this that's throwing. BT. And then we'll go back to our debug it. This was passing before the last time we worked on this stuff. Oh, so for whatever reason now we're actually making a live call out to Gemini. That's not what we want at all. So what have I done? Should be intercepting that. Maybe this won't work like I thought it was going to. Oh, you know what? I'll bet it's because of this. Let's see. Factory. Let's see if that did it. There we go. Okay, now let's test the whole file. TF. There we go. Okay. Yep. So that was the issue. I was using the wrong factory, right? Because I'm injecting this guy, which is kind of like our base factory, and then I'm actually further configuring that factory, and I'm providing a different factory over here. Okay. So that's that. So now what we should be able to do now we can safely use this in our end-to-end test, and we don't have to worry about using a fake Gemini service. So this test configuration here. So our test configuration, though, expects to be able to read in a test settings.json, which we don't have. So if we were to run our test right now, or let's go to our end-to-end test, what we would want to do is we'd want to be able to say, obviously, a client, and then we'd like to be able to say config dot something, right? Right here where we say provider key, we'd like to pass the Gemini. We'd like to say big dot uh, well, we'd like to say Gemini API key. Big. Oh, this should not be static. This should be an instance variable since we're using it for configuration. Or I guess would be a property. An instance should be a property on the actual instances. So back here, now we should be able to say there we go. Which I guess it could be a static class for since it's a test. But I kind of like using fixtures for XUnit. But it could most definitely be, I guess, a static class. I'll put this on new lines just to make it a little bit easier to read. Okay, now if we run this test, though, it's going to throw an error, right? Because we don't have that Gemini API key. Which is what we want. We don't want this test to run if we haven't set that piece of configuration. The configure, oh, it even threw because there wasn't a file there. Okay, so let's get that file made. So I'm gonna have to I'm gonna kind of hide this from you guys at some point, but let's just start with creating it. We'll just create it in the root of our test folder. We'll call it test settings. Or actually, I guess we could call it app settings.test.json. That kind of goes with the nomenclature that is used everywhere else in .NET, right? So we say app settings.test.json, and then we're gonna have configuration here, which for now it's just gonna be one provider, Gemini, and then we're gonna have API key. Which I guess that means we don't just care if it's null. We probably want to check if it's null or empty in our test or in our we probably don't want that. Can we do that as a property initializer? Can we say, let's actually just make this an expression. Say string is null or white space. It is, and we'll throw. Otherwise, we'll get it. Yeah, it is, but I'm using it like a fixture, so I need. No, I kind of like it being like that, but I don't care that it needs to be static. It's not going to be null. It doesn't need to be nullable, so I can say. Yeah, I don't. I need to declare this as an I class picture. I don't think I do I? Yeah, I don't need to. I do that on the type. CA 1822. So I think I can do disable, like pragma, warning, disable, CA 1822. Not a big fan of having to use pragnal warnings, but it's fine. Method, this is still a property. So now if we run this, this should throw now because, oh, nope, it's still going to throw because our file's not there. So we need to actually include it. We need to say content. Yep, but we're not including app settings. We're including app settings.test. We also need to get ignore. Yeah, it's already get ignored for us. By the way, we set everything up. Right? Yeah. Get status. Oh, it's not that we don't have a Git repository here anyways yet, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now if we're including that as part of our build, we should now be able to read it. So if we go to our test and we do dr, that should have failed because there's no Gemini key. Yep, Gemini API key is required. Okay, so now this is where I have to be sneaky and put a key here without you seeing. Let's see, we need to go to Gemini. I don't trust myself to even try to show you, because I know I'm gonna leak it at some point. I should probably, any credentials I use on stream, I should probably just delete after I get off stream. Yeah, okay. So what do I want to do? I want to bring this over here so you guys can't see it. I'm gonna put my key in there. And then I'm gonna write that out. And then I'm just gonna copy some stuff. I'm gonna copy some things that aren't secret so I don't accidentally paste a bunch of stuff. Yep, okay, now my clipboard's clear. Okay, cool. And then we should also probably close that buffer so I don't accidentally fill it. But we should be able to go to setting, or no, end to end. And now should be able to say space R. Okay. And now this should make a live request out to Gemini, and hopefully this will pass. Okay, why did it fail? Okay. have our file. We have Gemini. Uh, yeah, I guess we now at this point we got to go to program.cs. And we got to set a breakpoint here. We still have a breakpoint here. So here, and then now I need to be careful I don't. What? That's just. Oh, that was a weird. Let's see. Input in base TD. Unable to submit request because it has an empty meme type parameter. Oh, okay. Well, I know how to fix that. So if we go back to my integration test where I copied this all from, you'll notice I'm doing this right here. So I'm setting the meme type or the content type on the byte content as a header. And so I need to do that in my end-to-end test. So let's just copy that. Here. Say var byte content. That. Yep, and do that. Actually move this to our usings. I apologize if my energy feels a little down this stream. I promise it's not because there's anything wrong. It's just a nice and quiet, peaceful evening, and just trying to riff on getting this stuff working. So let's go back to this guy. And let's not forget to replace this here. Right. Okay, now space dr. Yeah, there we go. And I think if we even debug this, so let's go space td and set a breakpoint here. Let's see if we can catch it. Yeah. So try not to expose my provider key, or at least all of it. So here's what it gave back, right? So this is right now we're just sticking the whole JSON content it gave back to us. We're just sticking that as a string in our response. But if we go to the REPL, we should be able to grab this. Shift B will yank it to our system clipboard. Pull up Notepad here. Make this a little bigger. Also, we can continue. Okay, cool. So base dbc to clear all our breakpoints. Generate end-to-end test. Should be able to paste that here. And look, there's our says this is what the LLM basically gave us back. Here are a few options for alt text, ranging in detail. Option 1, concise. Option 2, more descriptive. A long hallway lined with antique bookshelves. So yeah, so that's an actual response back from the LLM. Now what we need to do is we actually need to do some work on, getting the right response that we want back from the LLM. So we need to have like kind of a standard prompt that tells the LLM how to respond, and then we also need to create some records or some DTOs to handle the request that we're sending to the API, as well as to deserialize this response. What you see here is just a JSON string, so we actually want to deserialize this to an actual C# object. Okay, cool. So I think I got through that without leaking my API key, which is good. I should probably delete it afterwards, though. Probably delete it when I'm done here, just in case I did accidentally leak it. I think I did pretty good though. Okay, so now so basically what we've done over the course of I've worked on this project for like 5-ish hours, or maybe more than that. I've worked on it for a few streams. Is we basically have gotten our primary use case to the point where we have integration test, we have an end-to-end test, which is kind of our smoke test, and so now we're kind of at a place where we can sort of iterate, and we have a set of tests that will help us make sure we haven't really foobarred something, hopefully. The piece of the puzzle we need to spend a little time focusing on now is we need to implement type, strong type for the request. And then we also need to implement strong types for the response. And then this prompt to do prompt should be stored in resource file. We don't care about localization. I just don't want it sitting in my source code. So we'll put the prompt in a text file and then read the text file. But we can probably actually cache it in memory, right? So this prompt's never going to change. So once we read it in, we can probably just cache it. I'm not sure how big of a performance hit it would be to always read that resource in to memory. But there's no reason to, because the prompt's never going to change unless I change the prompt and redeploy the API, since we're embedding the text file. And I guess maybe there's an argument not to do that. Like maybe there's an argument to say, well, we should be able to update the prompt. We should be able to update the prompt without having to redeploy the API. But honestly, the prompt is part of what makes the responses the responses. So if we do change the prompt, it's likely going to change the responses that we get. But I think for this project, that's the way I'm going to go. I'm going to start with it's just going to be a text file that will embed. Yeah, so I need to implement excuse me. So I think this is what we'll do next. Then we'll take care of the request types. Then we'll take care of the response type. Because I think what's going to happen is we're just going to deserialize this to the same it's basically going to be deserialized to a shape that matches what Gemini hands back, and then we will extract from that the actual text that we want to get back, and we'll just get back a string. We're just going to get back that string. Yeah. So maybe we write our prompt. What do you think? Write our prompt now, or should we call it for the evening? Let's write our prompt real quick, and then maybe we'll look at something else, because I'd really like to be able, I didn't talk a lot about things in this hour that I could probably chop up into some shorter form content. So let's create a new folder here called resources. Yeah, that wasn't right. I did that wrong. Should be resources / like that. And then let's just say prompt.txt. And then we need to write a good prompt. We need to write a good prompt. Yeah. So we could probably test some of this too. So I think, let me see, can I show you this without showing you my... Yeah, I think this is safe to show you. So this is almost every LLM provider has this type of thing. Google calls theirs AI Studio. Anthropic calls theirs the Workbench. ChatGPT calls theirs Playground. But almost every one of these things, every one of these LLM providers have this type of a setup where you can experiment with your prompt. And so this is a way to kind of iterate on a prompt without having to do a lot of extra work, right? To make a bunch of individual requests to API, you can just use a GUI like this. Now, this is probably the place you want to start for developing your prompt, but at some point, once you get your prompt to a place where you're satisfied with it and you're happy with what it's giving you, then you do want to put it somewhere where you can do more structured evaluation on it, because you can kind of almost think as prompts as part of your source code in these types of use cases, because the prompts are really what drive the tokens you're going to get out from the LLM. So if you modify that, if you get your prompt to a certain place where you're getting good results, you probably want to have some tests set up around that so that you can say, okay, I know that this prompt with these parameters to the LLM give me this output, right? Or gives me this score based on a rubric I've defined or test I've defined. That way, if you want to go and work on that prompt to improve things, you have a way to change the prompt and then rerun those cases and verify did the changes to the prompt make it better or worse. So I don't want you guys to think, hey, you should do all of your prompt development in this type of a place and then not have any evaluations around your prompting. And we'll set up some evaluations in my test bed for this as well. We can do some simple evals around this. So what do you want to do? Let's start with just something like please generate, and obviously these are the system instructions. So my use case is pretty simple. I don't need probably a pretty complex prompt, but let's just, for illustrative sake, let's say please generate alt text for the following image, and then let's insert an image. Pictures. Actually, we can use one of those. Let's do this. Yeah. So I could, like, again, I could put this as the user instructions. Which I guess the way my code is written, that's actually how it will come right now. Let's see. End-to-end. No, program. Yeah, right now I'm putting the prompt as part of the user message. I might want to change that and make that the system instructions. Move to system. Yeah. So let's just see what it comes back with. This is pretty similar to what we got in our test, because this is pretty much what we're saying in our existing source code. So now let iterate on this prompt. Obviously, I'm just doing this to, if you're not familiar with this type of development, working with LLMs and doing this type of implementation, just to kind of give you a feel for what it looks like. So then what we need to refine it a little bit. So now what we can say is we can say generate descriptive alt text that captures the essence. Essential visual information of the image. Right, and then we can rerun it. Is there a way? Can I just, oh yeah, let's rerun. But I wonder if it actually reran with the new system information. So let's add it. Let's add the image again, because I would expect this input, this output to change. Nope, that's not. Upload image. It doesn't want to upload that image anymore. Yeah, right. So see how so you can kind of see, like, just changing that prompt a little bit completely changed the style of the response that I got. So yes, this is where it's really important to kind of treat your prompt again like a piece of source code at some level, because it can significantly impact the response that you get. Even like obviously other parameters like the temperature that you have, things of that nature. can mess with um, the response, but a big factor in it is going to be what input tokens, because at the end of the day, that's what these LLMs are. I know people want to inject a lot of meaning. They Humans want to. I mean, that is the superpower of humanity, is the ability to derive meaning from things. And we, at this point, with AI, with generative AI, there's a lot of people out there who want to make LLMs seem like human intelligence. But at the end of the day, these LLMs are truly just great output token predictors, right? They see certain input tokens come in, and they are really good at predicting what output tokens should come next. And people are doing fancy things, like you hear the new thing is the reasoning models, where they're basically adding reinforcement learning as a layer into the development of these LLMs. But at the end of the day, we are just talking about what is like in this case that I'm showing you right now, we're just talking about what's the best tokens we can put in to get our desired tokens out. And so that's what a lot of prompt engineering is it's just us learning how to feed in the right bit or like right tokens into the model to get the tokens that we want out. So let's refine this even more. The models, again, if this is overly simplistic to you and not interesting, or you already know all this, forgive me, but I'm just kind of talking through this as if I'm explaining it to people that haven't done a lot of this before. So let's say the models basically can understand not only the tokens, but they also understand the semantics of the language. They also understand structure of the text of the tokens. So like let's make like a list of things that should be considered. So let's say like follow these guidelines, and then we'll say one. What'll be the first rule? The first rule will be concise, be concise but comprehensive, and then we'll say 1 to 2 sentences, and then we'll say describe the most important visual element, and what else? We can say convey the image's purpose or key message. 4 can be use objective language. And we're basically creating a rubric, right? We're creating a rubric for the LM to follow, and then avoid redundant phrases. Yeah, avoid redundant phrases. Again, we can delete that. We'll do this. Let's get one of my desktop pictures. I'm hoping it says something about a lake, maybe, or a path. A long wooden boardwalk with railings extends into a foggy landscape. Disappearing into the mist, the sun shines brightly in the upper right corner, contrasting the dark, misty foreground. That's pretty good. I guess it's kind of difficult to tell if that's a lake, isn't it? Maybe. Let's say priority details to include are gonna be Do I have any chatters? I guess I don't have any chatters. Let's say, again, we're going to use a list, main subject, action, or context, color, or distinctive markings, features, landmark, visual characteristic, and then emotional, tone, or artistic intent would be good. And then we can say exclude, like unnecessary details like background, minute, minutia, or decorative elements, unless they are crucial understanding. Yeah. And then I'm going to delete these again. There's some books. Here's the alt text. A warmly lit room overflowing with bookshelves, packed with countless books and papers, creating a cozy and slightly cluttered study atmosphere. A small ornate hanging light fixture adds to the inviting ambiance. Nice. Okay. So, okay, now, like, from an evaluation perspective, right? Or, okay, first two things here. One is I think that is good alt text. But two, I don't want to have to parse out from the response what is alt text and what is not alt text, right? Because this is not alt text. This is the LLM talking, basically. It's like a preamble. So one of the things I usually will do in this case is I'll usually end my prompt by saying, please, or you can actually, let's say, please, and then I'll usually do all caps, do not respond with anything other than the alt text. Upload image. Got this one. There we go. And so now it's just giving me, boom, punchy, one sentence alt text. Here you go. Cozy leather couch sits before a large, rich toned wooden bookcase filled with many colorful books, creating a warm and inviting reading nook. I mean, I had a chatter in my comment earlier, like several streams ago, say, you know, I just use ChatGPT, or I just use my brain. There's no reason to build a tool like this. But this is way better alt text than I would have taken the time to written for this image if I posted it somewhere. I would have said something like a library or a couch in a library with books, right? So I think there's value in building tools like this. I think there's value that the LLM adds because it will do a much better job of every time it generates this text, taking the care and time to write good text, and it doesn't require it to spend a lot of time or expend a lot of effort. So yeah, I think there's value in little tools like this. Okay, cool. So now I think this is a pretty good prompt. So okay, so then part two of what I was going to say was, hey, this is a good example of where you can use LLMs to help you on your day in your day-to-day work, and the cost wasn't very much, 420 tokens. And then the second thing I was going to say is, okay, now we can start to think about, okay, if this is the prompt we're going to use, we can start to build some evaluations around this. For example, we could do very simple things like, hey, if I was to run this prompt against this image, 10 times, let's just say something crazy like that, 10 or 100 times, I should definitely see the word couch in every response. I should definitely see bookcase in every response. Maybe warm, right? So I could check for key words, right? I could do like string matching. The other thing I could do for this type of use case is I could use another LLM to grade this LLM's response. So maybe I build some evals where I take this, so I take this image, I send it to Gemini with my prompt, then I get this alt text back, and I could make a request to Claude, and I could say, hey, Claude, with this rubric for grading, right? I want you to apply this grading criteria. We'd have to write another prompt, a grading prompt. We could say, okay, for this, according to this grading criteria I've given you, look at this image and then look at this alt text that was generated according to this prompt and give me a score of 0 to 1 if it's good or not, right? I could come up with, is it accurate? Is it concise enough? Is it relevant? I could come up with all kinds of different criteria to give that other LLM. And then I could do statistics and aggregation to say, 90% of the time, the alt text is within our acceptable criteria or something like that. So we can do some examples of that. But I think to start with, we could very simply just do some string matching or keyword matching on the alt text that's given back to it. In any event, I think this is good enough. This prompt is good enough for now to get started with. So let's go ahead and copy this over to our actual prompt.txt file. Okay, so now that we have our prompt.txt file, what we need to do is we actually need to embed that as a resource. And I always forget how to do this. I always forget it. And so I always just look it up. I'm a big believer in just-in-time learning. So what do I mean by that? I'm a big fan of just-in-time learning because I feel like that's the right model for a lot of work. Meaning, you don't need to remember and have deep knowledge on every single thing that you're ever gonna have to deal with. You just want to know a little bit about a lot. And then when a problem presents itself, you have some general awareness of what might be the right tool for the thing you're trying to do. And then you can go look at that tool and go deep to figure it out. Maybe that's not the academic definition of just-in-time learning, but that's how I think of it. Is just, hey, I know a little bit about some stuff. I don't know everything about it. I maybe have only used it once or twice, but I know it exists. And whenever I do need it, I can go read the docs and I can go look up that information. And I feel like if there's people out there who think that in order to be considered a professional or good at any area, that you need to be able to just to at a moment's notice, know everything about everything all the time. I just think they're so disconnected from the way people actually do work. I mean, granted, when you're in any field long enough and you sort of eat, sleep, and breathe it, it's probably very easy for you to go very deep on certain topics very quickly, very easily. But there's just so much to know about any one thing, especially something like coding or programming, that to try to always remember every little thing and be able to recall at a moment's notice is just not a realistic expectation for yourself. Which is all to say, I need to look up how you embed a resource. .NET, CS Proj, embedded. I know it's some attribute. I know it's an attribute I need to add. Yeah, it's like this. And I'm pretty sure I can do a glob pattern. So I can do something like that, and that's why I put it in a folder, because I can do something like resources, like that, and it'll include everything. And then program CS. So let's run our test again real quick, right? Just so we can compare the difference in the alt text. That we get back once we change the prompt. Oh, I guess I should have debugged it, shouldn't I? TD, not TR. Yeah, so you can see this, it gave us a kind of a long-winded, well, actually, you guys can't see that, can you? So, alt text dot alt. Oh, you can see it kind of gave us a long-winded option, right? It basically is giving us that same, here's several options for you, and it's just a bunch of long-winded nonsense we don't need, right? So now let's close that. Well, actually, we can keep that open for comparison. Let's continue. And now let's make those changes to actually use our actual prompt. So instead of this being a static string, this should actually be private. Oh, we don't need to declare private. It should be read only. No, it should be string underscore to begin with. It's just going to be empty like that. And then we should have an actual property, and that's going to have